Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and it's time to look at some more online tourney results. Now, unfortunately, there was no late night on Tuesday last night for whatever reason. I think it was because of the maintenance that TCG Live had. It was like a 7-8 hour maintenance, and I'm pretty sure that is why there was no late night. So we don't have a super massive tournament result to look at, but we do have some other tournaments that had about 100 people in them on average, and we have quite a few of them actually to look at here. I think we have 6 different tournaments to look at. So a lot of tourney results to kind of get into here. I'm excited. We got some pretty interesting archetypes that did well, actually, which is what I'm excited to look at the most are the oddball decks that did well. Because there's a few rogue decks that kind of snuck into some of, some decent placements in these tournaments. So start off with the Deck Out Monday tournament. This one was a fairly large-sized tournament. And we can take a look here at what we got. So the first one we have here is the winner being Gardevoir EX. So Gardevoir is obviously still a great deck right now. This build is very similar to Tord's build, except it plays Arven and Gallade, so a bit of a spicy list. Gallade is still something that could be useful in Gardevoir because it get you a supporter for free. Swirling Slice can be a decent attack also. I don't hate it. The Arven is something that I've seen people try out recently too, so Arven could be some interesting technology. We see another Gardevoir in second place. This one plays Squawkabilly and Miriam and Penny, so it's kind of like the old version of Guardy, but it does play that Squawkabilly, obviously, which does separate it. Not playing a Reversal Energy or Mirage Step or Seal Stones, which is interesting. It's a very interesting list here. The Squawkabilly is something I've seen people talk about in Gardevoir because it gives you extra draw. I don't think you need Squawkabilly in Guardy. I don't think it's super necessary, but it did work. This person was able to get second place in this online tourney. And then in third place, we have yet another Gardevoir deck. This one is a little bit more traditional, very similar to Tord's build. Doesn't play the Lost Vacuum, it looks like. It does play the Run Reversal. It's got the Zacian, the Force Seal, the Double Artisan, the Collapse, 3 Iono. Yeah, this is a respectable Guardy. But yeah, the top 3 in this tournament were all Gardevoir. And I think a lot of people are really not hating on Guardy, but a lot of people really think that Gardevoir is kind of falling off a little bit or isn't as respected as it should be. I think that this one online tourney having 3 and, the consensus of top 4 is kind of insane, to be honest. I think Gardevoir is still a very good deck, and heading into Pittsburgh, still probably going to be good. We got a Rapid Strike deck in 4th place here. Rapid Strike's another deck that I think is also kind of a decent pick right now. It's good against most decks, except for arguably just Mew and Lugia, right, which are still out there. But I do like this Rapid Strike deck. It does play the Squawkabilly, which I don't hate. I mean, it does let you find Battle VIP a bit easier on your first turn. Gives you extra push if you brick. It's kind of the issue with Rapid Strike. It's a cool deck, but it does have the tendency to brick sometimes, so maybe having that turn 1 Squawk can fix it. We see a Single Strike Lugia deck do well. Single Strike Lugia is a very good deck, in my opinion, in the format right now. It's good against Tina, good against Lost Box. I think the build of Tyranitar and Urshifu is still solid. I'm not sold on Urshi anymore. Like, I feel like the Cobalion is perfectly fine. Nobody really plays Duraludon anymore, but the Urshifu is still really good in general. Like, it can still be good in a lot of different scenarios, but yeah, seeing Lugia in top 8 isn't surprising. There's a lot of Lugia we'll probably be looking at today. Of course, Lost Tina in top 8 also. Basically, it's the most played and most popular deck in the game right now is Lost Tina, right? We do see another Single Strike Lugia deck do pretty well. This one, very similar to the other one, but it's playing Squawkabilly. That's a lot of Squawk in the top 8 here. Holy moly. That's, what, 3 different decks now with Squawkabilly in it? Yo, the new age of Squawkabilly is upon us, for sure, for sure. Definitely. And then we got another Lugia. This one looks like it's Colorless Lugia. So Colorless Lugia, I think, is a very good deck, too. Is it better than Single Strike Lugia? Yeah, you don't have the ability to, use Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a very good card, but the nice thing about Colorless Lugia is it's a little bit more streamlined. Snorlax is really good. You have different attackers. Lugia actually becomes a main attacker, too, in the deck, because you're playing 4 double turbos. Like, Lugia becomes main attacker. This build is a little bit different than the ones we've seen, not using the Slacking or the Path, instead playing the Weirdeer and a Radiant Charizard. Something I've seen people playing Colorless Lugia is Radiant Zard. It's not bad against Xianpao, Miraidon, any, little 2-price deck. And it's a really strong hard hitter. Though playing Charizard without Choice Belt is kind of awkward, though, because sometimes, 250 damage isn't knockout. You're not going to finish off, Arceus V-Stars and stuff, and that's kind of the issue I have with Radiant Zard in this deck, but it is good against those big, basic Pokemon, obviously, which is a big deal, because it does a lot of damage. And then that was the top 8. I did want to take a look at the Tyranitar. So there's actually a Tyranitar deck that went 6-2 in this tournament, which is not a bad run. We see this T-Tar list. It's a very straightforward deck. It does have a lot of tools in it, like Choice Belts. It's got Force Seal Stone. It's got the Mew engine. Seeing Tyranitar do well is kind of cool. Seeing it get 6 and 2 is not bad. I mean, it could have got top 8, just saying. I'm excited to see, T-Tar do well. It's a deck that I want to be a thing. I think it's, like, still just not quite powerful enough to be good, but the ability to use both Tyranitars is nice. Obviously, the Dark T-Tar is very strong. T-Tar being a Lenny type isn't bad. I mean, we did see a couple Lugias ahead of this, so I'm excited to see a T-Tar do well. It's cool that people are playing these oddball decks and winning with them. It's not the only, like, weird rogue deck we're going to see, by the way, in this video. But it's cool. I wanted to point out the T-Tar. Shout out to Monkey 85 for the sick T-Tar deck. Yeah, 6 and 2. They could have got in top 8. There was the chance for a 6-2 to get into top 8. Should probably look at the Charizard decks, too, here. Obviously, Charizard is a deck that hasn't really been overperforming. Obviously, now that the hype of Obsidian Flames has died off a little bit, I think people have realized Charizard just kind of is a bit of a mid-tier deck right now in the format. But we are still seeing the Arc Pidgeot Charizard build look like it's the optimal way to play Charizard. And we got the other Charizard deck that did 6-2. Once again, Arceus Charizard being basically the optimal way right now to play the Zard. Next up, we have the Sunny's Weekly, which was actually the winner was a Arc Gudra Vulpix deck. Very spicy. I don't hate it. I mean, Vulpix isn't bad right now against a lot of decks. It can be really good against Xianpao. It's good against Charizard. And the Gudra's not bad either. Gudra's a very strong card. It's good against Lost Zone, good against Lugia if they don't play Urshifu. And Gudra's just a very annoying tank in general. It's also probably not bad against Charizard if you don't have Vulpix. Like you prize it or something, Gudra's not a terrible attacker. It is cool to see this Arc Goo deck do well. It actually also plays a Poppy in the deck to move energy around. The stadium counts a bit awkward. It does play 2 cities, a Collapsed, and a Lake Acuity for some extra bulk. I don't hate the deck, man. I think that Arc Goo is a very cool deck, and I kind of am rooting for this idea. Like, this deck doesn't seem bad in the format right now, and the Vulpix has some untapped potential, especially in a format where Charizard is popular. And it did win the tournament. I mean, looking at the matches, right? The interesting matchup spread: beat a Mew, beat a Lost Box, beat the Rogue deck we're going to look at, and then beat a Snorlax, beat a Urshifu deck, and even beat another Lost Zone deck. So, interesting little matchup spread there for sure. Next up we have is the Lost Box deck in second place. It is the Turbo build with a Town Store, which does find you Bravery Charm and Force Seal Stone for free, which is kind of sick. So it's a pretty cool stadium to play in Lost Box. 4 Super Rod too, so very heavy Super Rod count there. Now, the big rogue deck that did well is actually Spidops Banette. Now, I think this is obviously a meme. I don't think this deck is, like, gonna break the meta or anything, but it is a really cool deck to see do well in an online tourney. And this build is kind of disruptive. It's got Klefki's in the deck. It's got the League Headquarters. Plays a Path. Plays the Manaphy, which I guess we should quickly read Manaphy here. So your opponent reveals their hand. Put up the 2 basic Pokemon you find there on your opponent's bench. So you force them from the bench, and then you boss them with the boss, and then you trap them with Banette and Spidops, because they can't play Switch when they're item locked. That's kind of the idea behind the deck. It's a really cool rogue deck. Again, probably more of a meme than anything else. I don't even know if this deck really beats the Lost Zone variants, except for, I guess, maybe Lost Box, so you do play Klefki, but it is cool to see this Banette deck do well. It's a cool deck, and it's always cool to see rogue decks do well in online tourneys. So, yeah, we see a T-Turn or Banette deck are the 2 kind of big rogue stories of the tournaments, which is kind of cool. Actually, I should probably look at the matches this person played against. They played against, wow, beat 2 Miraidon, lost to Gudra, beat Palkia, and beat 2 Lost Zone decks. That is very interesting. Huh. That could be a fun deck to try out. I think that's the second time we've seen a Banette deck now in the Obsidian Flames meta do well. We got Lost Tina, of course, in top 8, because Lost Tina is just a good deck. People play it. It's going to be popular, obviously. Seeing top 8 is no surprise. Got another Guardy deck here playing. It's basically Tord's list. Yeah, it's basically the Tord Guardy deck. It looks like very similar to Tord's Guardy list. We got the Charizard in top 8, too. The Arc Pidgeot build a Charizard playing the one of Magma Basin. Yeah, Charizard getting in top 8 is no surprise. I do think Charizard Arc Pidgeot is kind of just the way to play it. I've seen the Lost Zone variants, obviously, but looks like the Pidgeot build is optimal. Then we got Miraidon Flaffy, and I think this is the Path build. It is, yeah. So the Mahone Path build seems to be the best way to play Miraidon right now, and I think Miraidon Path is a great deck in the format. I think it's pretty good in the meta. I think it doesn't really have like any like super bad matchup, to be honest. That's what I like about it. I guess Gardevoir is maybe your hardest matchup, but even then, Gardevoir can still be beaten. But it is cool to see Miraidon start to actually become a legit deck now that you probably have to consider when, you know, going into a tournament, because it's just that popular, and it's actually not bad. Another Rapid Strike outside of top 8 here. Again, Rapid Strike I think is great in the meta. This one does play the Giacomo in the deck, which is also spicy for the Mew matchup. I don't know if there's anything else too spicy. We see an Ice Rider deck at 4 and 2 in top 16 here. Oh, whoops. Yeah, we see an Ice Rider Palkia deck here. Respectable deck. Doesn't play any Lost Cities, though. So playing the Acuity and the Path Playing 3 cross switchers. 4 VIP, 3 cross. I feel like it should just be 3 VIP, 4 cross, right? Wouldn't that just be better? Interesting, though. I like Ice Rider. It's cool. It's not terrible. We can move on to the next tournament here to look at. We got the Battle Park tournament, which was won by Fusion Mew, it looks like. So Mew's in a very good spot, I think. Spiritomb is starting to dip in popularity. Charizard is not overperforming, so that makes it so that Mew just kind of has a good spot in the format, right? That's kind of the effect Charizard has. Charizard becomes this, like, Mew killer, and then we see Charizard start flopping, right? And now, because Charizard's flopping, Mew's starting to run Supreme, Reign Supreme, Run Supreme, Reign Supreme. And that's mainly because, like, a lot of decks are just cutting Spiritomb right now. Even some of the Arc decks are just not playing Spiritomb, and that's a big deal when playing against Mew. If you don't have Spiritomb against Mew, you're kind of just going to get destroyed, and Mew is very good right now. I got it very high on my list of decks that could do well in Pittsburgh. We got Lost Tina once again in top 8, because Lost Tina, again, is the BDIF right now, probably. We see the Miraidon Path deck in top 4, too. Again, a very strong deck. Path to Peak is a very good card, and Miraidon is also a pretty good card, so put them together, you got yourself a winning formula. Another Fusion Mew in top 4. Once again, yeah, just Fusion Mew is not really being checked right now. Honestly, going into Pittsburgh, it might not be a bad idea to put Spiritomb within your deck to counter Mew. Mew has a very high chance of being popular in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Very high chance of being popular in Pittsburgh, and I think that having the Tomb in your deck is probably a good idea, or Drapion, right? We got 2 Guardies in top 8 here. Both looking like the one is towards list playing a worker, though. But see another Guardy list here again. The Tord build of Gardevoir. 2 Iono, though, over 3, which is interesting. We got another Lugia single strike deck here in top 8. I like the Cobalion. See, this is the Lugia deck that I like. Albeit I probably won't play the Squawkabilly if I were to play Lugia single strike, but I do like single strike Lugia with the Cobalion. I think Cobalion is honestly a really good card in the deck, because then you just need 3 energy to KO Charizard. And you could go back and forth whether or not the Cobalion is worth it, because as we are seeing the meta evolve, we're seeing Cobalion see more and more play within single strike Lugia. And I do think that Cobalion is worth playing in the deck. I think it is a very valid card to play because, while Charizard isn't the most popular deck, it is a deck that if you play against it, you just have an easier time into it, and you just have to play one card. It's like playing Spiritomb, right? You have that one card that increases the odds of beating Mew, like Tomb, and you have the one card that increases your odds of beating Charizard with Cobalion, and I think it's worth playing, in my opinion. It's like the same logic of Spiritomb, basically. We got another Lost Box deck here. This one is Kyogre. Once again, Kyogre is on the upswing. No surprise to see it in top 8. Got another Charizard deck outside the top 8. This one is the Lost Zone Charizard deck. So this is where people are kind of testing right now, is different ways to play Charizard. One of the main ways is the Lost Zone version of Charizard. Now, some builds are just playing Sableye. Some builds are not playing Sableye. This build opted for no Sableye, opting for just Fire and Gen Energies, which I do like. I think, like, I've tried Charizard with Sableye. I didn't really like it that much. I think the deck is just kind of a little inconsistent, or very clunky with what it's trying to do. I like just having Charizard with just Fire Energies, right? If you're playing a Lost Zone, you don't have to play Sableye. You could play, other attackers. You could play a Delphox. You could play an Entei. You can play a Radiantzard. You can play a Snorlax in the deck. But I really think that the Lost Zone version of Charizard is worth trying out. Cramorant's actually not a bad attacker in the deck either. You can, like, two-shot stuff with Cramzard, kind of like you're going Cram Snorlax effectively, which is kind of one of the plays you can make with the deck, which I quite like. Not much more. We do see an Arcdura at 5 and 2, which is worth talking about. This one does have Klefki, so it's a spicy Arcdura deck. It's not Arcdura Umbreon, it's Arcdura Klefki. Holy moly, this is a teched out deck. It's also playing Earth and Sealstone. 2 of them even. Holy. Not even 2 Earth and Sealstones? What? So if you do Earth and Sealstone, you don't get Starbirth. Alright, I mean, they didn't go 5 and 2, so they actually didn't do terrible. That's interesting. All right, next up, we got the next Sunny tournament here, the 3,000 code special. This one was a bit of a bigger tournament. The winning deck, of course, was the Kyogre Lost Zone deck, playing Shaman and Bruno. So a bit of a spicier take on Lost Box. The Bruno is very odd. It's an interesting supporter to see in a Lost Zone deck, but the Shaman is no surprise, right? Shaman is good against Charizard. I also think Shaman is not even bad in general. Like, as an attacker, it's not terrible. Like, you can do big damage with it in the later half of the game, which probably validates playing Shaman. But it did win the tournament. It went undefeated. We got Miraidon here doing pretty well, obviously. Miraidon, top 4, second place with the Path build. Basically the same as Mahone's list. I think Mahone's list is kind of just going to be the optimal way to play it going forward. And we see Guardy again. Kind of like Towards list, but only playing the one reversal. And in top 4, we got an Arctina. So the first Arctina deck we've seen in this video. Not playing Superior. And I don't know if Superior is needed anymore. Like, it slightly helps against Lugia because it helps against T-Tar, which kind of is a problem for Arctina sometimes. But overall, you probably don't need to play the Superior. anymore. But, you know, if you hit Charizard, you might need it. But this build opted for no superior, just playing Judge, Iono, and Research. I like this build of Arctina. I think Arctina's still a good deck right now. We got Lost Tina in top 4. Obviously, our Lost Tina doing really good because Lost Tina is a very strong deck. I think we don't really need to skim over every Lost Tina list because like we've already kind of looked at most of them. Another Miraidon Path deck. This one's playing a Penny in it, which is a cute tech card, and the new Miraidon too, and a Zapdos. So a bit more of an experimental approach. It did get top 8 though, so it did end up working out for that player. We see more Lost Tina. Yeah, just skim over that, and then more Miraidon. A lot of Miraidon in this tourney. Holy moly. Another Path Miraidon Mahone deck. And then we see another Miraidon deck just under 9th place here. Basically the same list. So the 60's been figured out, I guess, for Miraidon. Well, this build actually isn't playing Switch cards. It's playing Switch. Okay, no Switch card. That's very strange. Switch card's a very important card to have in the deck, in my opinion. Another Arctina. I want to see this one as superior. It does. This one does play the superior, so people are still playing it. I mean, it's not a bad idea, obviously. You can make the argument, though, that Arctina can beat Charizard without the superior, but, you know, it works, right? So, got Lost Goo at 5 and 2. Another decent run. Lost Goo is a cool deck. I mean, if you hit the right matchups, it's probably decent. It's not terrible by any means. This one's playing 2 Camo Ponchos and 2 Lake Acuity, so really trying to go all in on the bulk there. Next up, we do have the next tournament here to look at. I don't know what the name of it is. It didn't really say there, but we do see the winning deck, of course, was Lost Tina, because, again, Lost Tina is very strong right now. We see in second place, we have Mew. This is actually double Turbo Mew. Now, this is kind of ballsy because playing double Turbo Mew effectively means you're going to have a very awkward matchup against Spiritomb. But, like we've seen, Tomb is on the decline right now by a big margin. This makes double Turbo Mew very good. I think you could honestly play double Turbo Mew right now and hit no Spiritomb. And that's pretty good. There's an argument to me that Fusion Mew is still the better way to play Mew. Even if you have the Spiritomb, you know, counter with the Fusion Energy, the deck is still just inherently better. But the double Turbo Mew is still very strong regardless. It still has a lot of tricks it can do. And the fact that it's winning again means that Spiritomb should start popping up in people's decks again. Because we got Rapid Strike here in top 4. Yeah, Rapid Strike probably just ended up losing to the Mew, obviously. We got another Miraidon Path deck in top 4. I mean, yeah, we're just seeing the same 60 for Miraidon over and over again at this point, because it's basically been solved. We do see another Colorless Lugia deck in top 4. This one is playing Triple Collapse, so not playing the Path Slacking combo, just playing Triple Collapse, more or less, using the abilities. Playing the Echoing Horn is spicy. This is a spicy approach on the Colorless Lugia deck. I'm not a fan of the 2 Boss, though. Boss is very good in Lugia. Do not underestimate how good Boss is in Lugia. Boss is one of the best cards in Lugia, for that matter. I still think Lugia needs to play 3 Boss. I know you got, like, Double Fish and stuff and Triple Collapse. I guess there's a Serena. I still think you want to play 3 Boss in Lugia. I think that no matter what, that's just good. But seeing Colorless Lugia do well is pretty good. This is the same, actually, all of it's the same person who's playing it in the last Colorless Lugia deck we just looked at earlier in the video. They got top 8 too, so they're getting consistent runs with the deck. We see more Turbo Lost Box playing the Sky Seal Stone in the deck too. Not a bad addition. Really good against Mew, which is, again, on the uprise right now, so not the worst card you could play. We see another Lost Tina deck. This one is playing Tomb, and I like it. I mean, Tomb and Tina is probably good right now. I think it's still worth playing Tomb and Tina. And with Lumineon still being popular too, like, it's not the worst card you could play. And, of course, top 8. More Miraidon, Flaffy with the Path build, obviously. So, Miraidon doing pretty good. Proving that Miraidon is definitely a top deck right now. I guess we can take a look at some of the decks below it. We got a Shampoo deck. First Shampoo deck of the video to look at, but this one is the Arc build. So, it's not playing the Rev Room, not playing the Pidgeot, which we have been seeing a little bit in the past few videos. But now we're just seeing the kind of Arc build be the normal way to play. And I don't think the Arc build is optimal because you still are able to do some crazy plays with Arceus. It's a good attacker to have in some scenarios too. And yeah, just Shampoo being Shampoo, right? Just kind of still a very strong deck in my opinion. We see the Charizard deck here do well. This one is the Arc Pidgeot Zard deck playing the Basin, the Jock. The 3-3 Colress Iono split is interesting. So, yeah, Zard, again, not having the crazy term results we've been seeing, but still having some respectable results. And then finally, we got the Battle Park tournament to take a look at here. And this one did have a couple other interesting decks. The first one that we have is Miraidon Regieleki. So not the Miraidon Path build with Flaffy. This one is Miraidon Regieleki. This one does have the Klefki. So the idea behind Klefki is you can use Regieleki V's hit and run attack to go into the Klefki, which can be good against Lost Box and good against Mew, which we are kind of seeing Mew on the uprise. Now, I still think Miraidon Path is a better deck than Regieleki Miraidon. If I were to personally play Miraidon, I would still play the Path build. But there is logic behind Regieleki, and it did take down the entire tournament, which is big. The thing with Regieleki is it allows Miraidon to easily just shred through all the 2 prizers and 3 prizers in the format right now. And there's quite a few of them, and it's respectable. The downside of playing Regieleki is, of course, you are playing a Regieleki. Now, this build is a little bit weird. It does have Raihan and Clara and 1 Iono and 1 Judge. Playing a lot of 1 of supporter cards is interesting. 2 Feather Ball is interesting, too. I guess Feather Ball does guarantee you Regieleki VMAX, which I guess is fine. It's a cool list. I mean, again, as you can see, this person did hit a lot of good matchups. I mean, holy moly. Not a single prize deck on the matchup spread. Just Arctina, Mew, Lost Tina, Lugia, Urshifu. I guess they tied to that, because that'd be a tough matchup. The Palkia obviously is pretty free, and that's kind of funny. Just kind of hit the right matchups. Miraidon does well, I guess. And the best part about this tournament was the Regidrago Arc deck getting 2nd place. So I'm loving Regidrago, man. I love this card. I wanted it to be good so bad. And while it did win NAIC, and we're seeing it get 2nd place in his online tourney, we are seeing Regidrago start to kind of do its thing. And I'm still confident in the deck. I mean, it's basically like a more weird version of Arctina. Is like the best way to describe the deck, to be honest. Kind of like a weirder Arctina. We do see that new addition of that new Altaria in the deck, which puts your opponents active to sleep and makes them flip 2 coins to wake up. And if either are tails, they stay asleep. So very respectable deck. I'm excited to see Regidrago do well. 4-2 Arc, though, is a little iffy because you're kind of in a position where, like, you need more, you need more Arc. Because I still think you want to play 3. The Adventure Discovery I do like, though, because you can play Discovery to grab all of the Dragon V Pokemon and then discard them with Ultra Ball. You can't grab Noivern or Altaria with it, though, but it also sets you up pretty nicely. But yeah, I like the list. Playing 4 shoes. Not playing a draw engine, though, is the only thing that is a little fishy about it. It's also not playing any Luminion, so it really does rely on just not bricking. But I guess when you have 4 shoes, a Pal Pad, you have Legacy Star on top of that if you really need that, if you ever get to use it, if you don't do Starburst, and I guess you have an okay engine. I still like the idea of playing Kirlia within Arc Drago, but it is cool to see Arc Drago do well, and I'm excited that, this deck is finally getting some attention, because I don't think Arc Drago is a bad deck whatsoever. We see Lost Tina once again in top 8, because Lost Tina is very good. Like, I'm gonna repeat myself, man. It's just that good of a deck, because we got Rapid Strike here in top 4. Rapid Strike does seem like an online tourney deck, but I'm actually still, thinking this deck is still probably just good right now. I've seen it actually do well in a couple League Cups IRL, so the fact that it's translating both in the online tourneys and the League Cups definitely is telling that this deck is pretty good, for sure. Next up, we got the Lugia deck, Colorless Lugia once again. This one, yeah, this is the list I kind of can get behind. I like the idea of the path and the slacking. I mean, there's 2 different ways to play Colorless Lugia, as we've been seeing. The pathless build without the slacking, and then the path build with the slacking. It actually looks like it's the exact same 60 that won in the Seniors Division at the World Championships. But yeah, I'm a fan of this deck. I think this deck is actually pretty cool. It's a lot of fun to play. It's pretty good. It's got a lot of cool plays it can make, and I think it's a very good play. I'm even considering this deck for Pittsburgh. That's how much faith I have in this deck. There's a lot of decks I'm considering for Pittsburgh, to be honest, but this is one of them for sure. This is definitely one that I'm looking into, because Lugia is pretty cool, and I like this deck. It's fun to play. So congrats to John for doing well with it. We see the Arctina deck here with, again, the Superior, which, again, Superior just seems to be good. Again, I don't know if you need it, though, because it's like Superior, if you don't play against any Charizard, it's kind of just a dead card a lot of the time. Like, again, it'll help against Lugia. We see Cap Crew here. Did end up playing against the Charizard, so I'm sure it did come in handy. Actually, wow, they farmed a lot of Lost Tina. Hit 3 Lost Tina in a row. That is crazy. We see Fusion Mew getting top 8 again. Yeah, Mew's just kind of unchecked right now. It's just really, really good. But I mean, we are seeing more Path in the meta, I guess, which kind of bounced out No Spiritomb. Like, we saw the Regidrago play Path. This plays Path. Lugia, the Colorless Lugia's playing Path. Arctina's playing Path. Was this playing Tomb, actually? I kind of forget. Yeah, no Tomb and Arctina. Look at that. Boom. So, that's all signs that Mew's kind of come back. We see another Lugia. This time it's Single Strike Lugia in top 8. This is a nice list, too, playing the Cobalion and the T-Tar. I like it. I think the Cobalion's worth playing. Like I said earlier, it's a nice one of you can play that ensures your matchup against Charizard's a little better. Ironically, Cobalion does help a little bit against Mirror in some weird scenarios, but yeah, I think Cobalion definitely is worth playing in Single Strike Lugia. I like it. I respect it. We got the next Charizard deck outside the top 8. I don't think we've seen a Charizard in top 8 this video. All of them are outside of the top 8, top 16 range, maybe even starting to bubble, which this list looks like it might have bubbled out of top 8. But we do see the Arc Pidgeot engine, 4 Colress, 4 Iono, the 1 Charizard. Yeah, pretty straightforward build. And I think we've kind of all agreed upon and realized this is probably the best way to play Charizard right now. Anything else to look at? I guess we have another Colorless Lugia deck to look at here. Yeah, this one, this one does not play in the path or the slacking. So this one's a bit different than the other Colorless Lugia deck we looked at, but I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of Colorless Lugia. That's about it for all the deck. I guess we look at the Umbreon Arc deck. I went 4 and 3. It didn't do like great, but I still want to look at. Holy moly! Oh, it's a Sylveon box deck. Okay, it's a Sylveon toolbox deck. All right, I like it. I rate it. I rate it. That's sick. That's sick. That's sick. All right, cool, cool, cool. But yeah, there you have it. That is it for the video here, looking at all of these decks. There's some cool additions to the meta we saw. We saw this T-Tar deck do pretty well. We'll see if anyone decides to kind of continue off of the hype of this T-Tar deck, because it is a cool idea, and it is cool to see Tyranitar do well. Yeah, the Banette deck was really cool to see. I mean, again, it could be a one-of thing. I don't think this Banette deck is like super amazing, super insane, broken, busted deck, but it's cool to see Banette do well nonetheless. This Banette Spidops deck is kind of cool. We'll see if anybody decides to play it. Again, it might be like a one-time meme thing, but it is cool to see some of these weirder decks start to do well. Regidrago also doing well is pretty cool. So I'm happy to see the Rogue decks do well. We're kind of just seeing the meta stay the same. Lugia, Gardevoir, Mew starting to make a huge comeback, and then obviously we're seeing people kind of experiment with some interesting archetypes like the Banette deck and the Tyranitar, and Arc Drago doing well. Puts a smile on my face too. But that'll be it for today's video on the tournament online result video. Unfortunately, there were no late night tourneys to look at because, again, late nights are the biggest tournaments, so they are, in my opinion, the most important ones to look at. But these other larger tournaments are pretty cool too, and it was cool to see some of the decks do well. But hopefully next week we have another late night tourney. As long as there's no maintenance, we should have one. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new to the second channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. And that'll be it for me. Bye-bye.